Good morning to all. So, we are here to attend the first webinar of Infinite webinar series of Sreepathy Institute of Management and Technology. So, uh, the topic is how to move sustainably. So, it will be presented by Mr. Amegh Gopinath. So, as you know, we are in a very bad situation, like we are in a lockdown situation. So, in this situation, it is very important to keep the momentum going. So, in this time, you have to uh, we have to use our time to upskill and to get good knowledge sets. So this is the main aim of these kind of webinars. So this series, the webinar series, is jointly coordinated by IEEE student branch of Sreepathy and uh, IEDC of SIMAT, Sreepathy. So as we all know, these are the two bodies which are encouraging the students to take up new challenges, and new possibility of innovation. So this is exactly the motive of this webinar series also. So as we know, the sustainability is a hot topic, and all should be familiar with this idea or concept, which is very essential to move forward. So all are connected to sustainable development. All means all engineers, doctors, politicians, teachers, scientists, geologists, chemists, everyone. So that is the importance of this particular topic and webinar. So let me introduce the speaker of the day, Mr. Amegh Gopinath. So Amegh Gopinath works for German Corporation for International Cooperation as a technical expert. So he is based out of the Delhi office. Mr. Amegh is an urban transport planner having 6 years of experience in the field of transport planning, road safety, and air quality. So prior to joining German corporation, he was working at LINT Infra Engineering Limited. And before LINT Infra Engineering Limited, he was working for World Resources Institute for around 3 years, where he was part of the Sustainable Cities program on urban transport and road safety works in South Asian and African cities. He began his professional career as research associate with a Norwegian center for transport research, where he was working on climate change and environmental impacts due to urban transport sector in Indian cities. His work has mainly focused on tackling urban development issues through community engagements in planning process, inclusive strategies in transport planning, and complete street designs. Amegh holds a master's degree in transportation planning from School of Planning and Architecture Delhi and a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Government Engineering College, Thrissur. So, with all this, I am inviting Mr. Amegh Gopinath to this function. So, I know he is in a working home situation. So, thank you for accepting our invitation amidst this busy schedule. So, we have now we have Dr. Madhavan, sir, head of research wing of Sreepathy Institute of Management and Technology, to speak some words on this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Hello, everybody. So, good morning to you. See, we are facing today the greatest challenge and pandemic we have ever seen, probably. so different. So, in this scenario, the today's present topic, how to move sustainably, is at most relevant to our society. What exactly is sustainability movement? How to move sustainably? What is it actually? One definition, as I understand, is that it is the nuts and bolts of ecological and cultural health of the society. Mr. Amit will correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I got. One information: nuts and bolts of the ecological and cultural health of the society. It's made up of three pillars: economic, social, and environment. Now, once you reach the awareness about sustained move how to move sustainably and practice the concepts, we can certainly reach our goals of the ending poverty, ending hunger, ensure health, achieve education, and so on and so forth. Today's speaker, Mr. Amegh, will definitely introduce us to the field, this most relevant field, and enlighten us about this, the most essential and relevant topic. Over to you, Mr. Amir. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Thanks, Madhan sir. Thanks, Shrikant, for having me here as a speaker for today's webinar. First of all, I hope I'm audible to everyone. Shrikant, could you just confirm? Am I audible
Yes,
to everyone?
You,
yes,
you
yes,
are, you
Okay.
are.
yes, you're all
Yes.
right.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So yeah, hope everyone's just staying home safe and please be vigilant because these are like difficult times for all of us. Yeah, so as I start, let me just share my presentation first. I'll be sharing it on the screen. Give me a minute. So, let me start by giving an introduction about my organization. So, basically, we are the German Development Corporation. We support around 120 countries in their development sector, basically to develop the infrastructure. And we have been collaborating with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and with the Government of India for the last 60 years. And I work in the urban transport team. So, and when I say urban transport, some of the key areas that we are involved in are non-motorized transport, public transport, and GHG emissions, air pollution, capacity building, urban freight, road safety, etc. So, since the discussion is all about resources and sustainability, so why do we need to have a sustainable life, and essentially why should we move sustainably? That is the first question that we actually need to answer. So in a nutshell, if I explain what sustainability is and how a sustainable living it is, so it is a lifestyle that attempts to reduce an individual's or a society's use of the earth's natural resources. So when I say earth's natural resources, it consists of water, land, air, forest, and fossil fuel. So these are the essential resources that human beings and all other living organizations uh, depend on. So these are essential things for us to survive and live. And we afford this in different ways. Like we can afford a lot of resources in this world in the form of like the resources that I mentioned. But then the consumption is what we have to sort of look into, right? So we have to make sure that our consumption does not leave the world in apathy, and we leave enough for the future generation. Because at the rate which we are consuming the resources, we are definitely not leaving anything for the future generations. So these all come together to form the climate or the environment. So when I say how we have been consuming, already 2/3 of the world's resources are used up. And yes, climate change is real. We have been seeing a lot of drastic events across the world, and also in India. We have seen drought, we have seen floods, we have seen air pollution. So there are various ways in which cities and our states are being affected because of climate change. So since it's all about sustainable development, so the UN, the United Nations, had come up with sustainable development goal, and we have goals for every 10 years. So that for the 2030 agenda of sustainable development was adopted in 2015, under which we have 17 sustainable development goals, which are an urgent call for all the countries and for all the partners to develop in a sustainable way. So when I say sustainable development goals, there are few goals which UN has targeted to achieve: to reduce poverty, to reduce hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, clean water, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industrial innovation, reduce inequality in terms of gender, or it could be income, anything, sustainable cities, etc., etc. I'm not listing it out, but then there are 17 goals which the UN, United Nations, has requested all the countries to sort of try to achieve by 2030. So let me sort of give you a brief introduction where India currently is standing. So let me start with the energy sector. So energy sector is literally it is across all sectors. It literally connects all the sectors, because without energy, or like we cannot imagine the entire world running. So currently in India, the sources, there are various sources for energy, and currently our thermal sources is around 63%. Hydro energy is 12%, nuclear is 2, and renewable energy is 23. So if we all together, if we look at the renewable energy, the sustainable energy, it is somewhere around 30%. And most of our thermal consumption is from coal, gas, and diesel, which is not sustainable. So almost 63% of our sources of energy are unsustainable. And according to the Paris Agreement, the government of India is targeting to achieve 175 gigawatt of renewable energy, which is to achieve 40% of power generation from non-fossil fuel sources. Where do we currently stand now? That is the important question that we ask. So according to the World Bank data, in 2015, India, when I measure emission per capita, when I say per capita, it is per person. So per person, India emits around 2.7 tons of CO2. The global average is 7 tons CO2. So if you look at this diagram, there are various bubbles, of which the green one is India, and other countries. I'm comparing with the other countries which are higher than in India. So US is the highest with 20.4 tons, and UK and Indonesia followed up. So when I'm talking about the targets, India is in line with the targets. By 2030, we'll be around 50% below 2000 the current levels, and we are far ahead of the targets. So let me give you a brief scenario of how our Indian cities have been growing all this while. So if we look at the 1991 urban population based on the census data, we had only 5 cities which had 5 million plus population, correct? So if you see at those blue circles, we just had Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata. And in 2011, you can see how the cities have grown. We have 3 cities which is more than 10 million population. So when I say 10 million, so 1 million is 10 lakh. So 10 million is 1 crore. So the cities are exponentially growing. Our requirements are growing. Our consumption is growing. So as the population increases, as the size of the city increases, our emission increases, our consumption increases. So that's the relation that I'm trying to talk about. And according to the projection by the UN and the IIHS, the Indian Institute of Human Settlements, by 2031, we'll have around 7 mega cities, by which the UN also agrees to. So we really know how exponentially we are sort of consuming our resources. Yeah, and this is a diagram. Am I audible? Because I can't hear anything from the other side. Am I audible, by the way?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, great. So I'll just continue. Yeah, so this diagram, here I'm showing an comparison over the last 3 decades, from 1990 to 2001 to 2010, how the cities have been growing. So if you see the red spots, these are the urban areas, how it has been expanding. So in the case of Kolkata, you can see the red spots in 1990 around the river. how the growth has been, and in 2011 it has expanded, and 2010 it has further expanded. So it's basically the explosion of urban population and how we have been how our cities have been expanding. Same goes with Delhi and Mumbai. So this is something which is concerning. So when I say the cities are expanding and urban population is growing, essentially we need to understand is that our resource consumption is also increasing. Let it be the natural resources, forests, water, and everything. And one of the reasons why cities are being choked is because of this. We haven't left any space for the city to breathe. Of course, we need some space for us to breathe. So in the same way, cities and urban areas, or any region across the world requires space and requires green cover, requires rivers, everything for it to breathe. So in the name of development, what have we lost and what have we gained? We have actually lost time because we are constantly stuck in traffic. So we spend a lot of time in traffic, and we have lost health essentially because of air pollution and noise pollution. Like we don't have good air to breathe. And we like we have been constructing roads, flyovers, whatnot. And what have we ended up losing is we have lost public spaces also. So according to World Health Organization, 23% of global GHG emissions are from transport, just from transport. And 70% of it comes from cities. And to our shock, 9 out of 10 people breathe air containing high level of pollutants. And according to WHO, these figures are real. I'm not sort of making it out. These are according to World Health Organization. An alarming death toll of 7 million people. And if you see this diagram on the right side, you can see India, which is marked as black, and the other South Asian regions come under that. Over 2 million people have been killed because of air pollution. And so what does happen with air pollution? Our brains get affected. We come across heart diseases. Our lungs are affected, which causes lung cancer and both chronic and acute respiratory diseases. So what are we trying to achieve in the name of development? This is the question that we should ask every time when we sort of afford resources, buy things, buy cars, construct houses, or even if we are buying this, like what food we are consuming. All of this is part of the sustainability chain. So this is an image from Delhi. This is a road. So on the top left, this part, this is the Gurgaon Delhi highway. So you can see how many cars are flooded on this road. And below, this is another street in south of Delhi. This is the traffic on the on the Delhi roads. And on the right side, you can see how many vehicles are running on the road. And Delhi is currently known as the India's asthma capital because Delhi has so many vehicles. So there was a study which said, like, if we consider the percent of people who afford cars, on an average, a family affords more than 3 cars. Is it even necessary that a household should have 3 cars? Like when we have public transport and we have other modes to travel, why do we have to need why do we need to afford a car for our daily commutation is the question that we need to ask first of all. So these are 2 charts where I'm talking about urban population and car population. So according to the numbers, world population will double by 2050, and also the vehicular consumption. So 1 billion motor vehicles today will triple by 2050. So that's the number that I'm talking about, and the graph is exponentially going above. So we are currently at 2010, we were at 1 billion vehicles, and by 2050 we can expect it to reach 3 billion or more than that. Depends on the rate at which we are going to consume our resources and how we are going to afford, because our income is increasing, and our desire for sort of affording all these luxury items are also increasing. So it's not the essentiality, but then it's the greed that is making us afford all these resources. So when I talk about urban commutation, so this is a pie chart where I'm talking about how urban India travels. So 24% of the travel data that have given, they are not reported in what mode they actually move. The 23% is by foot, people walk, 13% by cycle, and 17% by two-wheeler, and 4% by car. But then when I say 4% by car, you should consider like we are a country with 130 crore. So 4% of it uses car. So that's a huge number. And 80% of our travel, which falls under 10 kilometer in that. So if I say I travel from my office, like from my home to office and office to home, that is 2 trips in a day. So that would be like, for me, it is 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers from my home to office. So I make 2 trips, it's 10 kilometers. So what the data says is 80% of a trip is under 10 kilometers. So basically 10 kilometers of travel can be easily covered through public transport. We don't have to use cars or two-wheelers. And this is a dream where like cities hope that they can reach someday. So you remember the picture that I showed you before, like how the Delhi streets were looking. This is Shenzhen in China. You can see how many number of cars they have and how many pedestrians are walking on the road and how many buses are there. So this is what like ideally all the cities should try to achieve. At least like we should at least lay down a roadmap and think about how to achieve this, right? And when I'm saying roads, so it's all about the options that we have, how we move, and what is the road or the road structure that we have. So if we talk about our cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Kochi, or like Bangalore, Hyderabad, we see a lot of flyovers. So the first question that we need to ask is like, why do we need flyovers? Like flyovers are for what? Like can a pedestrian or a person walk on a flyover? No, these flyovers are only for cars and buses. When we have road at grade, like where people can walk, why don't we prioritize? Why don't we give space for people to walk and cycle? So on the right side here, this is an example of a normal road, how it looks. So we have cars moving around, the ones marked in red, and the gray are the cars parked on the left and the right side of the road. And here we can see pedestrians, people walking on the footpath. So why I'm taking this image for reference is, so this road can accommodate with this current configuration, like 3 roads for traffic to move and two lanes for the vehicles to park. So it can accommodate around 4,500 people on 2 sides of the road, which is 9,000 people, correct? And here on this 3-lane road, it can accommodate 1,100 cars. So let's imagine like a car can accommodate 3 people. So in that case, it can move 3,300 people, right? And since the vehicles are parked, we assume that there are no people sitting inside the car. So altogether, it is 12,300 people in this frame with this design, which is a car-oriented street, which only prioritizes cars and very less pedestrians. And on the right side, this is a street design where we are trying to accommodate more pedestrians and people to cycle, and we are giving more space for the public transport, bus systems, and we are just going to give 1 lane for cars. And let's see how much do we achieve. So in the previous scenario, we were only able to achieve 12,300 people to move at a time. So when I give a footpath, which is much wider, so it can accommodate around 8,000 people with the current configuration of this. If I give 7-meter wide footpath, so 8,000 into 2 is 16,000 people. So we have already crossed the number 12,300 people, correct? And cycle lanes. So we are going to give a cycle lane. A cycle lane would be around 1.3 meters. So here I'm giving 2 cycle lanes, which is 2.6 meters wide. So we are accommodating how much? 7,000 people. And in a bus, so on a thumb rule, a bus can accommodate 60 people. So if I say we have some around 60 people in 100 buses, right? So it comes around 6,000 people in altogether. And if I assume like these cars can move on one single lane, let's imagine like there's only one traveler in this car. So it is 1,100. And based on this configuration, what do we understand? We achieve 30,000 people moving in this kind of a design. So now I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So with just prioritizing cars for cars to move on the road, we are not achieving anything. We are just giving more space for the cars, and we are actually not giving space for the people to walk or even cycle. And so the first question that we need to ask, are we trying to move cars or are we trying to move human beings? We are moving because we wanted to move from one place to another. We didn't want the cars to move. But then what we're doing here is we are literally moving the cars and we are not moving human beings. We are prioritizing through flyovers, we are prioritizing in various other ways. We are just prioritizing cars. We are not giving enough priority for human beings. So that's what we need to answer. So on the left side, you can see here like how soothing and how pleasant the street looks, how people are walking on the street and there are very few vehicles, and down under we have another street design where we can see enough public transport, buses moving around. And what I'm asking you to say is just relate this image with the image I showed you before, the image where I showed you cars, that it was only cars moving on the road. So we need to think about this. Like, just imagine, like in this car, let's imagine only one person is moving. How many people are actually moving? Why don't we provide footpaths? Why don't we provide public transport? And what and all of this, these vehicles give rise to air pollution. We are polluting our air. This is what I'm talking about. The next slide, like let me simply explain. So here you see 60 people standing here. So if I give 60 cars to each one of them, this is how the road will look like, right? 60 cars moving on a road for 60 people. But then on the second image, we see one bus. This one bus can accommodate the same number of people, which is 60. And how does the street look like? And on the third image, there are 60 cycles, and again these are 60 people who are moving. So you clearly know what I mean by sustainability. Like, what are we using and what have we been using all this while? Like, we have been using cars and we have been consuming so much road space, and all of this individual cars, they emit polluting vehicles like particulate matters, uh, CO2, CO, like nitrous oxide, sulfur oxide. There are so many other pollutants which are associated with vehicular pollution. So by using a bus or just by cycling, what we get is we get more space. We can have we get a free environment without any pollution, noise. There's a lot of space for people to communicate. That's essentially what I'm talking about. Like, prioritize your mode of transport. Like, let us prioritize through public transport, walking and cycling, which is the future. And this image is basically from India, and I'm really happy to say that our country is thinking about how to move towards sustainability. So on the left side, on the top left, this is Pondi Bazaar in Chennai, where they have redesigned the street and they have tried to accommodate more people on the road by giving wider footpaths and not prioritizing cars. So they have reduced the width of the road where they don't allow cars to actually move. They are allowing people to walk, cycle. And on the down left, this is JM Road in Pune. Again, they have given more space for the pedestrians. So this is the space for pedestrian and this is the lane for the people to cycle. So you can see how enriching it is to look. Like, when we look at a street full of cars, like the only thing that comes to our mind is traffic. And we are not even able to sort of move through that. We are stuck in the traffic, we can hardly move, and we are losing our time. And on the right side, this is Pune. In Pune, so they have a system, BRTS. So when I say BRTS, it's Bus Rapid Transit System. So in this, what they are doing is they are providing dedicated lanes. So when I say dedicated lanes, they are giving exclusive lanes for buses to move. On that lane, neither cars nor two-wheelers can actually move on that road. So that space is only for buses to commute. So if you see here, this part of the lane is only for buses. So when there is traffic on the right side, so basically cars and two-wheelers are stuck in the traffic. But since this dedicated lane is only for buses to move, so this is basically an idea to this idea is to sort of to to change the thinking, how people think about urban transportation, how people have been moving. So I'm driving a car. So let's imagine I'm in this car and I'm driving a car. So if this car is stuck in traffic, what you get to see is the buses are traveling smoothly because there is no traffic, and and the city prioritized, like city decided, yes, like why should I give more space for somebody who's traveling by car? And in a car, like the maximum number of passengers that can travel is 4, right? So let's assume we are traveling by a Maruti Suzuki Swift. So Swift can accommodate 4 people comfortably, and if we want to sort of accommodate 5, then we can accommodate 5. And how much space are we consuming? But then at the same case, like if we compare the whole situation with a bus can accommodate 60 people, correct? It can accommodate 60 people, and it consumes lesser space. Of course, the emission from the carbon emission, the nitrogen oxide emission, the particulate emission is much more from bus when compared to cars. But one thing that you have to understand is, when I say vehicular emission, a vehicle has few number of people traveling in it. So suppose, let's imagine a car emits 20 gram of CO2. But then when we emit 20 gram of CO2, how many people are actually traveling in it? So 4 people are traveling in it. So 20 gram divided by 4 gives you what? 2.5. So every person traveling in a car emits 2.5 grams of CO2 in a day. The same when a person travels by bus. So I'm talking about a bus consisting of 60 people. So let's imagine a bus emits 100 grams of CO2 in a day. So when I divide by 100 gram by 60 people, it comes around 1 gram per person. So a person is emitting 1 gram when he or she is traveling by a bus. But then at the same case, when a person is traveling by a car, he or she is going to emit double or maybe triple. If it's a diesel car, it's going to emit more. I hope you understand what I'm trying to put, like the point that I'm putting here. And down here, it's Church Street in Bangalore. So they have banned vehicles to go on this road. So Church Street doesn't allow any vehicles to ply on it. It's only for pedestrians to walk and cyclists to cycle. They don't allow any kind of vehicles. Let it be public transport, let it be two-wheeler, let it be car, or any mode of transport. They cannot just go on this road. So when I'm talking about sustainability and sustainable transport, what are the solution? And these solution, I'm not the one who's giving the solution. This is given by the World Health Organization. And 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 the sad part is, we have agencies like United Nations, World Health Organization, and lot of other organizations who work on sustainability and who are there to support us. The only thing that countries and cities and we as human beings need to do is just look at what and how we have been consuming resources, like right from food, or the mode by which we commute, or for that matter what we eat. Like, we know what we are eating every day, right? And we know how we are traveling. We have a car at our home, we have a two-wheeler at our home, and we know, like, most of, like, since India is a developing country, we are heavily dependent on coal based fuel. Let it be electricity. Electricity is majorly generated from coal, and petrol and diesel. That petrol and diesel is majorly dependent on fossil fuels. So what we have to understand is, it's not just the petrol that we get at the petrol pumps. It's basically the process that it goes through. It goes through excavations, it goes through cleaning process, and all during this we are. So when I'm saying excavation, there are large mines, coal mines. They excavate. There's a lot of pollution at that initial phase of excavation, and then it is being processed. So at factories and at generators, they process. They have to process the coal, and they have to put it in a, and they have to burn. Only while coal is burnt, energy is released, right? So during that phase, again, emissions are there. And then the petrol or the diesel, it has to be transferred to the petrol pump. We go there, we fill. So there is air pollution throughout. Air pollution, environment pollution, noise pollution, it's all part of it. So what WHO says is the solution are, Like, let's start investing in energy efficient power generation, which is wind, which is solar, hydropower. Like, we can generate electricity through water also. Let's improve our domestic industry and municipal waste. Like, let's not dump our waste into the rivers. Let's not throw away our waste on the road, because these can be used. Like, if you have a compost at your home, a biogas plant, a small biogas plant at your home, that all your organic and inorganic waste can be used to sort of generate fuel, which can be used for cooking. And even like, if you have a solar panel at your house, you can charge your solar panel. Maybe in the future, like, people might just start buying more cars or two-wheelers which is solar powered. But then I would still say using a car is not sustainable, even if it is run on electricity or battery, because we are buying a vehicle for our individual purpose when government has given us public transport in the form of metro and buses. Why do we have to own a car? Why do we have to own a two-wheeler when there are enough options for us to move and make greener and more compact cities with energy efficient buildings? There are quite a few number of ways how we can construct our buildings. We don't have to construct glass buildings which reflects and emits energy. We don't have to build concrete buildings. Why do we need to have such high rises? And including the agriculture, like how we have been dependent on non-vegetarian, like how we have been consuming like chicken or whatever. I'm not saying we have to cut all of this, but then we can reduce at least. Like, if we reduce, it will definitely impact our earth, and it is going to give a positive response. And provide universal access to clean, affordable fuels and technologies for cooking, heating, and lighting. Build safe and affordable public transport systems and pedestrian friendly cycle networks. So, yeah, this is the presentation which I was basically planning to present. So if anybody wants to know more about sustainable development, my email ID is amegh.gopinath@gmail.com. You can write to me. I would take your questions, and I would want to respond to them if you have any questions. Shrikant, Madhavan sir, if you have any questions or any participants have any question, I can take up few questions. We have around 15 to 20 minutes left. I thought we could have some discussion also. It's up to you, like, if you want to know anything more about it.
Yes, thank you for your wonderful presentation. So, participants, if you have any questions on this webinar, please type in chat and send. So we can use this remaining 15 minutes for discussion. Please.
You can also give me some feedback, like what you think, what is your personal experience, if you have done anything from your side to sort of improve your way of living. Again, you can share your experience also. And be comfortable. You can speak in Malayalam, English, whichever language you're comfortable about.
Sir, Madhav
I
sir.
have a question. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I can
Yes.
hear you. Yeah, I can
Hello.
hear you. Hello. Yeah, please go ahead. I can hear you.
I really enjoyed your presentation. It was very nice. Okay, my question is, after Corona effect in India, I think there will be an increase in sale of the cars and private vehicle, I think, because people are afraid to use public transportation because of hygiene and cleanness, etc. So the sale of cars, etc. What's your opinion?
So thanks for your question. So if you remember, my slides and my images that I had shared with you. So basically, first and foremost, what we have to understand is of course, like after COVID-19, the public transport system are high risk. But then what we have to understand here is we have other options. When we talk about cars being, can you put your speaker on mute because I'm hearing a lot of disturbance. Yeah. So post COVID-19, people are going to be afraid to sort of use public transport, for that matter, buses or metro or any kind of public transport, because there is high risk of virus getting transmitted to us. But then what so there is this bus group in China, Shenzhen bus group. They didn't stop their bus services. So I'm talking about Shenzhen bus group. If you want, you can Google maybe when you later go after the presentation. So Shenzhen bus group, they didn't stop their public transport system. Instead, what they did was they reduced the capacity of their buses and they blocked the entrance to the bus driver. And they made sure that the public transport is not over occupied. And so that's a sense of responsibility as a human being, or as an individual we need to know, like, COVID-19, or like for that matter coronavirus spreads when we come in direct contact with human being, or when a person who is suffering from coronavirus, he travels or she travels in a bus and uses or touches any part of the bus. So if we are sitting on a seat which is only being used by me, and there is a social distance which is being used, even if a potential person who is carrying coronavirus, he or she, of course there are chances of this getting transmitted, but we can still make sure that we carry out disinfection, we clean our buses regularly. So the Kerala, the motor vehicle department in Kerala, they have launched, they have released a guideline where they have mentioned how to use public transport during these situations. The motor vehicle department had done that. They have made sure that we cannot stop anyone from using public transport, but then we can make sure that people who essentially depend on public transport, they can use it. And as you said, like, cars are going to increase, but then the decision is with us, right? We can cycle, we can walk. Why do we need a car? Like India before had a lot of people who were walking and cycling. Like, why do you need a car? Like, we generally use a car because we have a street design which allows cars to move easily. We don't have a street design which allows a person to walk or cycle. So if we have a road structure, like as I showed you, in the case of Chennai or Bangalore or Pune, we just need to change our street design. So our policies, our taxation system helps citizens to afford car much easily. Like, in India, we can afford a car, like if you earn around 20 or 30,000 rupees every month, if we apply for a car loan, we can easily afford a car because we can easily pay the EMIs. And cars are so cheap. Like a nano could be bought for like 2.5 lakh or less than that, I guess. Why do we need to have such cheap cars? Like, I'm sorry to use the word cheap because nano is cheap. Like, the safety part, if nano it's a bus, like, nano doesn't have any safety features. Like, the person who's driving that car is under immense risk. His life is under risk. Why would you want to drive a nano car in a traffic where there are trucks and buses moving around? So that's again, so we try to provide more space for pedestrians, we provide more space for the cyclists. Let's not provide more space for the cars. That's the first question that we need to ask. Of course, there are going to be sales which are going to increase. The government need to sort of make sure that the cars that are being sold in the country has basic safety features. And more than that, let's not have cars which are like 2 lakh rupees. It doesn't have any safety features. We are putting our citizens in risk. Why do we have to do that?
Yes, thank you
So
for
we
your
need,
answer.
yeah. So I see there's another question from Vishnu. So instead of reducing the use of car, which is driven by fuels, we can use electrical vehicle, right? Then we can get privacy for business people, and it will reduce the pollution. What is your opinion? Yes, that is correct to an extent. Like, if we are using electrical vehicles, vehicles, it does reduce emission. But then the problem that we are still talking about, the roads are still going to be congested, right? Cars, if it runs on fuel, diesel or petrol, if it is running on electrical, cars are still cars. The road space that is being that will be used by cars are going to be still the same. Of course, the environmental part, air pollution, but again, we have to think about how these cars are being manufactured. There's a lot of process that goes through it again. So what the problem, what we don't understand here is, we are just thinking about when we afford the car, we buy a car and we afford it, but then you should also think about how these cars are being manufactured, what is the process that goes through it. So if you're talking about 1 billion car in a country of 130 crore, the figure that I'm talking about is wrong. I'm just giving an example. Why do we need so many cars? So in India, the figure says that there's only 1 lakh buses, urban buses, which is very less for a 130 crore people. So we just need to prioritize what we need to use and what is better for the country and for our consumption.
Can I add my views here? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
yes,
Hello?
yes.
Yes, sir.
See, I'm from Bangalore. So they have tried, as you suggested, a separate track for the buses. But unfortunately, very unfortunately, other cars and then, two-wheelers come into the road and then block. Half of the time the track remains blocked. Now, this is a disadvantage for buses. Now, I saw one of your slides where the track is segregated, physically segregated. Now, in Bangalore, there is no physical, there is only a red line, yellow line, which segregates. Now, let me. So, segregation, physical segregation by barricading, and allow only public transport buses, the city buses or maybe other public transport bus. That is the only alternative, because the rule of not crossing the yellow line is more many times it's violated, as I can see it in Bangalore. I don't know about other cities. Recently, I have not seen that.
Yes, they are violated. You're correct. You're correct. It is being violated.
Yes, it's being violated. So unless you have a physical, barricading somehow or other, either permanent or at least temporary barricade daytime, and then you remove it in the night if you want. That is the only solution for having public transport system in two separate lines. I have seen that that's not really picked up. It hasn't contributed to to streamlining the bus route. That's one thing. Second thing, as I can see, is here in cities like Bangalore, where the bus punctuality of the bus is questionable, highly questionable. You cannot think of reaching a place if you travel by our we call it BMTC, Bangalore City Transport. Now, if you want to reach railway station or bus station or airport, based on this transportation, it's going to be very, very tough. So people are little hesitant to use it because of this. So these two, if you improve the physical segregation of the tracks and then punctuality of the public transport system, then things are going to improve quite a lot. So, but someone has to write it in very severe terms, and then it has to be implemented. Hopefully, after the COVID, it goes down, then hopefully, government will take that initiative. Thank you.
To just, I totally agree with you, sir, with that point. Just to add on to it, like we have been involved with the work that Bangalore was doing. So basically, what we have seen is, though the bus lanes didn't have physical segregation, people were still using, like the cars and two-wheelers are not supposed to take that lane, but then the cars and two-wheelers still went onto that bus lane, which is only dedicated to buses and exclusively for buses. So there's also a sense of responsibility as a citizen that we have to sort of abide by. We know that a signal is red. We are not supposed to jump that signal. We shouldn't jump. We know that a bus lane is only for buses to move. We shouldn't take that buses. We know that when a red signal is there, we shouldn't park our vehicles on the zebra crossing. We shouldn't park, but then people still do that, and they know that it's wrong. But then that's how the behavior has been across the entire country, and that's the exact change that cities should bring. The basic thing, everybody in this world knows that we should use like helmets, but then very few use it. And we know that by using helmet, what happens, we are saving our life. The best example is, we have a smartphone, we have a screen protector, we have a back cover and whatnot. We protect our mobile in every possible way. But then when it comes to wearing a helmet and riding a two-wheeler, it's just so difficult. We just don't want to wear a helmet. And the first question that we need to ask is, our life less precious than a mobile phone? Answer that question. You will know why, and why we haven't been using. That's all. It's a behavioral change that we need to bring. Like right from using a helmet to using a car. So once we decide that I don't want to use this, that's when you make a decision. Yeah, okay, Shrikant, you have a question. What are the multidisciplinary aspects of developing sustainable cities? Okay, that's a good question. So when we talk about sustainable cities, there are various aspects. There is housing, there is urban transport, there is environment, there is water. There are a lot of aspects where development is sustainable development. So as I said, we have residential areas, we have commercial areas, and we have industrial areas. So all these, so every city has land use. So land use is something where the city authority, so when I say city authority, it is the town and country planning office or the municipal corporation, or for that matter the state government. They decide how, we decide what type of land is allocated for what type of consumption. When I say consumption, industries. So we decide, let's suppose Kochi. MG Road is commercial, is actually commercial. Well, for that matter, let's be even more simpler. Let's talk about Thrissur. Thrissur Round. Thrissur Round is basically more commercial. So who decided that area to be commercial? And if we go further inside, let's go to Ayandol or Pumanam. Who decided that to be residential? Or for that matter, my college, Government Engineering College Thrissur, who decided that part to be organizational, institutional land use? So basically, it is the state government, it is the municipal corporation, it is the town and country planning office who decides what kind of land use needs to be implemented. And they are the sole agencies who decide where to construct road, where to construct houses. So they decide, okay, if I go and purchase a land, if it is not coming under a residential area, I cannot buy. It is for commercial purpose. So I can buy that place for commercial purpose. I can build malls or whatever. So we need to decide. And the best example is Kochi, Marad case. Like we know like how construction happened over the banks of the river. So we know like how we have to use our resources and land use. So we just need to work on that. There are a lot of aspects like population, land use, income. These are essential aspects of sustainable development. People earn money. The reason why we can afford resources, the reason why we can buy cars and two-wheelers, the reason why we can buy land. So all of these are aspects of sustainable cities which needs to be integrated to have a sustainable future. I see another question. So I have heard of BRT. Is BRT an effective solution to sustainable transport? I think I answered that question. Yes, definitely sustainable if we have physical segregation and we provide enough space for pedestrians to walk and cross the road. So BRT can be implemented only if we provide good crossings, good footpaths for the pedestrians to use the system. So it doesn't help if we only provide a BRT system. Instead, we should give enough footpath and safe crossings for the passengers to use the system. That is very important. And next question that I see is, why not use cameras and IoT to improve enforcing? Yeah, very great suggestion. It does help. We have CCTV cameras, IoT, Internet of Things. It is a smart way to sort of fix all our traffic problem. Yes, for that we need to invest a lot on technology and infrastructure. They are definitely a solution, but then since India being a developing country and very few cities in India have reached that level where they can afford so much technology and they can have such easy infrastructure where you don't need human involvement. Technology can automatically handle everything. Like how even Kerala has CCTV cameras, speed controlling devices. So if you're over speeding, you wouldn't see a traffic police on the road, but then you end up receiving a challan at your house. This is basically technology. This is ITS. So the term is ITS, Intelligent Transport Systems. So when you install these systems in your cities, you don't need human involvement to manage your traffic or commutation. That's a good point. And Sanu actually has another question. My question is: are on-demand ride services like Uber and Ola good or bad for the environment and study conducted? Because I heard that it is difficult to get ride data from these companies for research. Yes, Ola, Uber are not sustainable, but then when we compare with, so Ola and Uber come under IPT. So buses come under PT, which is public transport. IPT is inter-public transport, which is basically a way of providing an option for a person to commute. So he or she doesn't have to buy a car. Instead, can book a cab. So you have that app on a vehicle. You can on your mobile, so you can book a cab. It is much better than affording a car using a. But then yes, you have to regulate. You have to regulate. A city has to regulate. Okay, my city will have only this many number of taxis, these many number of Uber cars and Ola cars. They don't share data. Yes, that again. So that is something which GIZ and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs is working on. Mobility as a service. So mobility as a service is basically to create a platform where all the data which is being generated by Ola, or for that matter any startups, like there are Yulu is a bike sharing system which is developing providing cycling infrastructure for people to cycle. So once this system comes up, you can easily pass a policy where you say personal data needn't be shared, travel data, on which route you go, what time you travel. So that data can be put up on this mobility as a service platform, where this data will be saved on the database, and the government can use this data for developing policies, for developing systems, and developing infrastructure. I hope I've answered that. And Sreepathy, all members of Engineering can effectively participate in games. Yeah. So if you have any more questions, then please ask me, or else you can also write to me. Amegh.gopinath@gmail.com is my email ID. You can write to me if you have any questions. Sreepathy, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Amegh. So I think there is no more questions. So as said by the speaker, you can mail to him if you have any further queries. So make.
I hope I was on time. I didn't take a lot of time. I think 12:30. I'm finished right at 12:30.
Yes, actually, it was very perfect.
Okay.
Amegh, thank you very much for this valuable talk, and I hope all. Yes.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I hope all have got a basic concept about sustainability and sustainable cities. So I'm thanking speaker Mr. Amegh in the name of all the participants gathered here, and I'm thanking all participants who are actively participated, and I'm thanking Dr. George sir, Principal of Sreepathy, HODs of Sreepathy, Sushma ma'am, Staff Coordinator and Staff Coordinator IEEE and HOD of PCE, Sabit sir, IEDC Nodal Officer, Sunil sir for Administrator, for backing me by giving online support. Then Vishnu, the student chairman of IEEE CMAT branch. Okay, so I thank all for actively participating in this webinar. Mr. Amegh, any other thing to discuss?
Thanks,
Or
Shrikant.
any
Thanks for inviting me for this webinar. Like, it's always a pleasure to sort of interact with students and people who have this option of thinking. I would really encourage that people should start thinking and start deciding what they want to do, how they do it, and how sustainably we are going to do them. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Thanks, Madhavan sir, and thanks, Srikant, for giving me this opportunity.